Hello class, welcome to video 3 of our review of the commands that we did the last class. In this video we'll talk about creating files. For creating files we use the touch command. To create a file called list you use touch list. To create several files all you have to do is provide their file names divided by a space, and to create a file with an absolute path, all you have to do is provide the absolute path of where you want to create the file plus the file name. For example, I want to create a file called games.txt inside my downloads folder. So all I do is absolute path slash games.txt. To create a file using a relative path, assuming that you are inside your home directory, touch downloads games2.txt. To create a file with a space in its name, you can either use the quotations, the single quotes, or you can use the escape character, which is the backslash. Creating files is very simple. It's pretty much similar to how you create your directories. Same thing applies. Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at how that works on the command line. So I'm gonna go back to my Ubuntu machine, and here we're gonna create a couple of files. But first, let's create a directory. Let's create a directory called games, for example. So we'll do mkdir, and we'll call this games. Let's go inside games by changing our present working directory to games. Let's clear the screen, and now that we're inside games, I'm gonna create one directory, one file called list of games. So I'm gonna do touch list of games, and I'm gonna give it an extension of .txt. If I do ls, the file was created. Now I want to create three consecutive files. Excuse me, three consecutive files. One called books. The other one is gonna be called mag for magazines. The other one is gonna be called PDFs for PDF files, and the other one is called list underscore what list keyboards. Right? If I do ls, you're gonna see that all these files were created without a problem. I wanna create one file that has a space in its name. For example, I'm gonna call this number of cats. This is gonna create three files, one called number, one called of, and one called cats, which is not what I want. I want a single file called number of cats. So I'm gonna surround this by single quotes and press enter. If you type ls, you're gonna see that the file number of cats has been created. Let's take a look at all of these things that we did graphically. So we're gonna open the file manager, and we're gonna go inside games, and here are all the files that were created. If I open PDFs, you see that the text editor opens over here, which is gedit, and let's close it. Let's close that as well. This is pretty much everything we went through, everything we did during class where we were talking about the touch command. If you have any questions about touch, reach out to me on Discord, and let's continue. Um, let's talk about deleting files and directories. You know how to create directories. You know how to create files. Well, how about the getting rid of them? So the rm command is used for removing files. Rm by default does not remove directories. You know, and there is a typo there. Let's fix it right away. Directories. There you go. Let's get back on track. So rm by default does not remove directories. To remove a directory, use the rm. We use the command rm, obviously, with the -r option for recursively, which means go inside the directory, delete everything that's inside the directory, then go back out and remove the directory. In Linux and other Unix systems, you cannot remove non-empty directories, meaning if there is a file in that directory, you won't be able to remove it unless the directory is empty. That's exactly why we have the -r option, because it is a pain to delete the content of a directory and then delete the directory. You know, the only thing is that, like I said before, Linux is a Ferrari with no brakes. It will do what you tell it to do. So if you intended not to delete the directory and you run the rm command by mistake, voila, magic, poof, directory is gone. And everything in it is gone. So always use the rm-r command with care, and knowing that you are getting rid of all that data, that you're not deleting stuff by mistake. There is also a directory called remove directory. It is used for removing empty directories. I rarely use it because when I'm deleting something, I know that I'm getting rid of it. That's about it about the rm command. Let's take a look at some examples. To remove a file, simple. Remove and then the file name. if you're gonna do it with absolute path or relative path, then the path and then the file name. To remove a file and then ask whether you want to remove it or not, meaning this showing a prompt saying, hey, do you really want to remove this or no? Then you provide the minus I option, lowercase I. Notice the lowercase because the uppercase I does something different. And what does it do? Well, if you have more than 3 files, it's going to ask you, hey, this directory has more than 3 files. In this case, let's say 10. This directory has 10 files. Are you sure you want to get rid of it? And there you go. Are you sure you want to get rid of all these files? Yes? No? Then you have remove an empty directory. rmdir, downloads, games. Remove a non-empty directory. rm-r, download, downloads, and then games. Let's practice this command real quick. So I'm going to go inside my VM one more time. I am inside the games directory, but I want to go back. I want to do everything with relative path this case. So as you can see, the games directory is right over here, games directory. So let's clear the screen. We start fresh. I want to remove one of the files inside the downloads inside the games directory. So before I do anything, I want to list my games directory so that I know what is inside there. And I want to get rid of the books file, sorry. So I'm going to do rm games and then books. Press enter. And if you list the directory one more time, you're going to see the games is, voila, gone, poof. I want to delete 2 files. Okay? So instead of saying games books, I'm going to do mag. And I'm also going to do games. I don't need that. There you go. Games, number of cats. If I list the directory one more time, you're going to see that number of cats and mag has been deleted. Now, I want to delete everything inside this directory. But I want the terminal to ask me. So I'm going to do rm games, and then I'm going to do a star for everything. We're going to learn what the star in particularly does once we get to the video when we talk about file globbing. In this case, just keep in mind that when you provide the star, you mean everything inside that particular directory. More on that later. But I want the terminal to ask me, so I'm going to provide the lowercase I option and press enter. rm remove regular empty file games list keyboards. Yes. rm remove regular empty file list of games. No. Remove regular empty file games.pdf. Yes. If you list the directory one more time, you're going to see that there is only one file left, and that was the one that we say no to. Now let's create a couple of files inside the games directory so I can show you how the capital I option works. So we're going to call this one file 1. Don't worry about this, the curly brackets. I'll explain what they do later on. But briefly, when you do this, the command itself that you're applying it to is going to operate, it's going to expand a particular string all the way from 1 to 3. We're gonna go more in depth about that in upcoming videos. In the meantime, let's just run it as it is. This created 3 files inside the games directory, one called file 1, 2, and 3. Let's list the content of the games directory. As you can see, file 1, file 2, and file 3 has been created, and also list of games.txt, which was already there because we said no when it asked us to remove it over here. Now let's run the remove command again with the star wildcard, but instead we are going to use the capital I option. So that would be remove minus capital I games and then the star wildcard. Let's press enter, and it says rm remove 4 arguments. Yes, get rid of them. I don't care. Press enter, and if you now do ls games, the directory is empty. You will be able to remove this directory by just doing remove games because the directory is empty. Oh, but what happened there? What's going on? What's this? Let's read the error message, which is one of the things that very, very few people do. rm cannot remove games. Is a directory. Well, that makes sense because Earlier in the PowerPoint, we saw that to remove directories, you have to use the rmdir command for removing directories. If you press enter, the directory is gone. I want to create a directory one more time. Actually, let's remove the example directory that we created in previous videos, talking about this directory over here. This directory contains not only files, but it also contains subdirectories. So if I want to get rid of everything, get rid of this directory with everything inside, because I'm sure I want to do it, I'm going to do rm -r and then example directory. If you press enter over here, the directory is gone. It doesn't even ask you, it's just gone. And that's why the rm-r command is very careful. If you want to add a prompt, you can do that by just providing the -i option. But again, be very careful when you use rm-r. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. That's how you delete, that's how you remove directories. Moving and copying files and directories. That's our next video. This concludes our review of our previous lecture. Have a good one.